All right, Tajean, thank you for coming. If you don't mind introducing yourself and just giving me a quick background about yourself.
Big Courtney, you know. Sorry. Sorry. So yeah, my name's Tajean Hutton. President of AFC Wembley Football Club, founder of the AFC Wembley Foundation, and also Grassroots Manager at Kick It Out.
Thank you, thank you. And before we get into anything, I was going to start off with two riddles, okay? I'm going to get you working. And the forfeit now is that obviously I know you, we've got a decent relationship.
Yeah.
If you're not able to
Man
get...
said decent.
If you're not able to get two of these riddles correctly,
Yeah.
then you have to tell me something that I don't know about you.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thank you. So are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. The first one is, I have some pets. All of them are dogs except two. All of them are cats except two. And all of them are rabbits except two. How many pets do I have?
You have to say that again, bro.
No worries. A bit slower.
A bit slower, boy. It's still before 12. Go on.
I have some pets. All of them are dogs except two. All of them are cats except two. And all of them are rabbits except two. How many pets do I have? Get them thinking on this bright sunny morning.
These times I'm not even thinking about the riddle no more. I'm trying to think about the fact that I can tell you about me. You get me, car? That's a myth. I don't know, bro. What's the answer?
The answer to that is three.
Explain that.
Okay, so if I have one dog, okay, and my other two, and two of them are cats and rabbits. So I have animals, and except two of them are dogs. All except two are dogs. So that means I have one dog. Okay, are you with me?
That's not factually true.
Why?
Because if all of them are dogs except two,
Yeah.
or they could be free.
How?
If I say, alright, cool, I've got kids, yeah,
Yeah.
and all of them are female apart from two, that gives no indication as to what all of them, the number of all of them are.
But then you're gonna have to give me another fact. You can't just tell me you have kids.
So where does it give indication that you're
I've told
referring
you.
to
So
one?
I've got three sets of animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sets, yeah.
So dog, rabbit, and cat.
Yeah.
All of my animals are dogs except two.
Yeah.
So that leaves one.
No, because a set doesn't mean three. You saying three
I
sets?
said, but I've given you three sets. I've given you three sets. So think about it now, because I've given you three sets.
Do you know what?
Thank you. My second riddle is, fill in the blank, okay?
Yeah.
Jenny is the only sister of Mandy, and Mandy is the blank of Jenny's sister. What is that blank?
Jenny is the only sister of Mandy,
Yep.
and Mandy is the blank.
Of Jenny's sister.
Sister? Nah. What is it?
Mandy is the name of Jenny's sister.
Oh, for goodness sake. Oh, for goodness sake.
Okay. So we're awake now, and we're ready to kick things off. Like I said, thank you for coming. Thank you for taking your time out. It's been hard to get this.
A man asked me what did I have for breakfast, and what did I say?
Nothing. But
I said water. A man's hitting me with riddles. Anyway.
cool. So we're going to kick it off nice and simple. What was it like growing up in Brent for you?
It was special, man, because I'm fortunate enough to be part of the era where it's like Northwest London and Brent was one unit. So I'm fortunate enough to remember when we didn't have a divide, and I'm fortunate enough to see the effects of, not fortunate, but like I've lived on both sides of the coin. So me growing up, it was, did you watch Ed and Eddie growing up?
A little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit.
It's just kids outside playing, man. That was it for me. Not necessarily limited to football. It was just playing. Like we went to the park, we went to the fields, we went to cage, all that stuff with no worries in the world. Like it was a special time them day there, man. But yeah, I've got no qualms growing up in terms of up until teenage years. It was beautiful, man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what would you think changed? So you said you had no qualms up until teenage years.
Yeah.
What changed?
Teenage years is when the divide started happening. So that's when you had to start being more conscious as to where you would go. One thing people don't realise about Brent, man, is the size of it. I mean, it's not even just Brent, it's just Northwest in general. We're not like any other part of London, like North, East or South or West, because we're in the corner of two. When problems started to manifest, it's neighbours having problems with each other. It's not like you're taking bus journeys to go to a next man that you got a problem with. It's a walking distance. So in terms of like you going to the shops or you visiting your grandparents or your aunties or your cousins, it was like, oh, that's a bit booky. When that stuff started kicking in, it was foreign to us because it's like prior to that, it was, oh, anybody can go anywhere. So when you hit your teenagers and you're starting to explore your independence and stuff, and you can start riding your bike by yourself and you can start doing what you want to do on the weekends and stuff. It's like, right, cool, we've got the freedom from our parents, but we ain't got the freedom in the streets no more. So that's where the conflict started to come into play, and people who were innocent, who's got nothing to do with nothing, had to start watching their backs. Yeah. Because it's that question of where you're from was rampant in the 2000s, like rampant, like it was everywhere. And so yeah, it was a lot of fear going on around, man, a lot of fear mongering, especially amongst teenagers at that time. Yeah, so that was probably one of the more not so nice sides of growing up in Brent at that time.
And as a young person growing up, what were your dreams and aspirations? So what did you want to do?
Yeah, it's funny because I was speaking to somebody about this the other day. My heart was telling me football. That's what I've done since I was about 7. But I always wanted to be different. So when somebody would ask me, I would always say something that sounded pleasing to the ear. So I'd say like an architect, or I remember at one time I said, oh, I want to own my own trucking company. And the only reason why is because I used to watch My Wife and Kids, and Michael Cowell had a trucking company. Fam. That's the only reason why. So it's like my heart always told me football, but my mind was always in conflict because I always knew the possibilities are slim. So I tried to convince myself that I have to start planning now for like a next grandiose career in architecture or business of some sort. But yeah, the plain answer to that would always just be football, to be honest.
Okay. So it's interesting. We look at a lot of people in Brent and everyone wants to be a footballer.
Yeah.
But I suppose you almost said to yourself, the chances of becoming a professional footballer are slim. So you started, at what age would you say you started to wonder about other avenues? Because you were realistic with yourself and said, you know what, as good as I may be, there's still other things that I need to become professional. So when did you say to yourself, I'm going to start venturing and looking at other options?
I'll probably say I was about 12 or 13. And I'll never forget this. So my dad was my football coach. And I remember he took me to Fulham Football Club one time, the training ground. And then we had a tour around the ground and stuff. And then his narrative was, I'm going to do some coaching with them, so just follow me there. We're going to see what the facilities are saying. I was like, yeah, cool. Gone there, seen the facilities and stuff, got back into the car. And then he sat down, he's like, I told a bit of a lie. Like, it's not me they want, it's you. Like, what do you want to do? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, like they want you to join the development team. I said, raw. And I turned it down at that moment. He was like, why? I'll never forget, there was a kid that joined us when he was about 12 or 13. Now, this guy was in academies from he was about 6 years old. And I remember his first game with us at Wembley FC on a Sunday. He stood in the middle of the pitch. He started crying. And then my dad was like, Rob, what's wrong? He's like, Trevor, I can't handle it. It was just intense. There was a lot going on. So he'd been cuddled and like spoon-fed to the point where now you're in the Wild Wild West and you can't handle it. And I looked at him, I said, Rah, I don't want that. Yeah. If that's what the academy system's giving you, I'm cool here with my brethrens. So at that point, that was a deciding factor to me to say, like, you know what, if that's what the academy systems do, if that's how the effects it has on you, I'd rather not. So at that point, I started to explore other options, even though the opportunities still kept coming, football-wise, and I still kept playing and stuff like that, but my mind was elsewhere. So by the time I was 15, I called it quits.
So would you say that it takes for people to almost get their own realisation, or would you advise young people now to always have your plan B?
I'd say if you're given everything that you can give, there's not necessarily a need for a plan B. I think sometimes plan Bs can deviate you away from your desired end goal. the issue is young people these days aren't given everything they can give. There's a sense of entitlement now where young people believe that the plan A is something that they deserve and something that they're entitled to, when there's a lot of work, a lot of sacrifices that need to be had in any career to get your plan A. I believe in everything you need to have a contingency plan, and that plan B could be your contingency plan. However, I don't believe that you should put any energy into anything other than your plan A. If plan A don't work because after you've given everything you can give, cool, you've got something in place. But your energy should be solely be given into your plan A. I think the issue is people now are skipping the process. So in the midst of your process of pursuing your plan A, even if the destination isn't your desired destination, you've got the victory. You've got the prize because the process is the prize.
Yeah.
But people often try to overlook the process and try to go straight for the end result. And that's where the plan B comes in handy. Because the plan B is more or less shaped around your comfort, more or less, more so over your desires.
100%. I agree with you. You touched upon your father being your coach.
Yeah.
What was that like? What was that like? Because we see parents on the sidelines that have no idea about football.
Yeah.
Screaming. So a father that knows a bit about football, being your coach, how was that for you?
Yeah, there's good days and there's bad days. I think the pressure that comes with your dad being your coach sometimes is inexplainable because you never believe you're good enough. There's always this lingering thought in your head is, am I here because my dad's my coach? And I think you then put yourself in a position where you're constantly striving for the respect of your peers. So it's like, I need the man them to tell me I'm good. I need the man to be like, yo, Tajean's sick.
Yeah. Because
that's the validation. I've seen so many times where kids are playing for their dad's team and they're there because it's their dad's team. I've seen that so many times.
100%.
So for me, I was always seeking that validation from my brethren to be like, oh, no, Tajean's decent still. Obviously the stats and stuff, so banging in 30 plus goals per season, all that stuff helps because you realise you're doing something right. But that's necessarily the negative side of it. The good side of it is you're bonding with your dad without you even knowing. So I come from a single parent household, but weekends was dad time. And that for me was invaluable because you may not appreciate it at the time, but in real time, it's building these memories that you then cherish after that period has lapsed. Which I'm assuming was the plan for him from day one when he decided to become my coach. But it's a two-edged sword. So it's like, it's a lot of pressure, but at the same time, there's this undeniable bonding that you have. In a lot of ways, it could end up turning into resentment because again, it's like your dad's onto you on the sideline in ways in which he ain't onto nobody else, boy. And that probably had a contributing factor as to why I didn't want to become a footballer, because there's a saying that some of the worst kids are preachers' kids or pastors' kids because they end up rebelling and doing the opposite of what their parent tells them to do because of what they've seen or their lack of attention, all that stuff. And at times, it was like, oh, you know what? I'm done with this football thing because the pressure that my dad put on me to just perform well.
Yeah.
Not to be a footballer, but perform well. At times, it takes away the fun out of it. But overall, I say it was a very, very good experience, especially when your dad's a good coach. If your dad's whack, it's techie, bruv. It's techie, but like to know that your peers like respect your dad to the highest degree, like it helps, man. So it was overall a good experience.
And so there's two things that you touched on that I want to look on. And the first one is you spoke about being brought up in a single parent household.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's important that men play an active part in their son's life, especially in today's society?
I like the way you said son, because that specific aspect is probably the most important. We are in a society now where young men are surrounded by women in a lot of ways, whether it be a single parent household, but also in a schooling system, which you know, primary schools are nothing but women teachers. Secondary schools, a large proportion of them are women teachers. So in terms of having the balance of influence, you have young males who are being mainly raised by women, which for me will bring about contradictions in behavior because biologically it just doesn't add up. That's not disrespect to women. I believe I was raised by women, and it definitely has its benefits, and it definitely adds to your sensitivity. But in terms of that balance that a young man needs, you need a male figure, and it's so important that males understand that the moment you bring a son into this world, whether you believe it or not, they're looking at you for inspiration. They're looking at you for 100%. Guidance. They're looking at you for what to be. And chances are, if you're a footballer, your son's going to be a footballer. If you're an accountant, your son's going to be an accountant, or go down that route. Because you are the first role model that they see. The issue is we're seeing more situationships and relationships. So the concept of bringing a child into a world, into a family unit, and making sure that balance is there is something that we've overlooked. That's where the gap has been, especially within the black community, where we've gone so far away from that family structure, marriage, kids, the household, raising the kids in that household, to where now you kind of question where are we going to be in 20 years' time, because that family structure in a lot of ways doesn't exist anymore. And I believe that starts from the male accepting their responsibilities, but it's also not just on the male. Like, mums need to make it easy for a relationship to exist.
100%.
You know what I mean? It's like a lot of, the guy's this, and the man's not doing this, and he's not paying this, he's not paying that. It's like, no, you need to play your part to making sure that this relationship is cohesive. And if you're a mum that's making it difficult, or using your child as leverage to have one up over your partner or your ex-partner, at that point, you've got to G-check yourself. 100%. So it's a two-way thing. Women's got to take accountability, but also males, and that's where the parenthood comes into it. And a lot of people will say, male kids are being failed by their dads. No, kids are being failed by parenthood. And that's because it takes two to tango, and unfortunately, either one's dancing or one's not dancing. It doesn't work. So, it's a key role, but it's only one half of parenthood.
And the second part I had was, you said that your father was well respected.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that 110%, he definitely helped me and thousands of people in the community. So for me, what kind of role would you say he played in your life? And before you answer that, if people don't know, I want you to tell them about your father and the sort of things he did and how he helped this community, because 110% has definitely helped this community.
All right, so if you don't know, my dad's Tariq Hutton, flat out Northwest London legend in so many ways. Started off influencing the community through music, started his own record label, and then transitioned into football and using football as a tool to help the youths in the area. He'd done that for the best part of about 40 years. My life, he was a thorn in my side in a lot of ways because he was so strict. People often allude, because he was a school teacher as well in Capital City Academy, people will refer to his strictness, his sternness and all that stuff. And I'm like, if you think you got it bad, I was his only child. You get me? So it's like, if you think you got it bad, I'm not only his child, but I'm his only son. I bear the surname. So he took that seriously. Now, I'm not going to say he was overbearingly strict because I didn't give him a reason to, because I knew that if I was to go left, I already knew where I was going. Not just him, but through my mum also. But he kept me on track, man, in ways in which I felt like giving up on something, or in ways in which my discipline weren't as strong as it could be. That's when he stepped in and like, yo, fix up, brother. You're not doing what you should be. So in terms of that balance, my mum was stability in terms of make sure you do what you need to do as a foundation. But my dad was a creative maverick. So if you have this idea, run with it, but make sure you're doing everything you can do to make sure it happens the way it should be happening. So in terms of that discipline and exercising your creativity in a way that don't make sense to anybody else, he was that guy. So there's ideas that I'll have now that will make sense to nobody, but I know I have to run with it because the end result will make sense to other people, not the process. And that was him as a living manifestation in terms of doing things that don't make sense to other people, but when the results happen, it's, I saw what Trev was doing there. And then when you see the end result, you try to duplicate your own. It don't work because you ain't Trev. That was him in a nutshell, man. So in terms of balance, he gave me everything I needed from an older male's perspective, in terms of respect, reverence, how to conduct yourself, as a man should be. He gave me the example, not through him living, but more so do what I say, not what I do. And that was his ethos in fatherhood, man. So yeah, special, man, special, irreplaceable, man. And
that last bit to me was very, very eye-opening in terms of, I remember just being told, like, or not even being told, being shown how to behave. So I remember for me being in year 6 and found out I'm going capital city. And he came to my house. And he said, look, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
This teacher's going to try and do X, this teacher's going to try and do Y. This is how you maneuver in this situation. And I feel like without that, I wouldn't have been able to maneuver the way I did and get through my secondary school years. So for me, I want to know, how did the passing of your father affect you? Because I know it affected people worldwide. And I think for me, one of the reasons why I am the man I am today, he's played a massive part. So for you to be a son, living with him, and seeing him and responding way more than what I had the chance to, knowing that you lost him, how did that affect you?
Well, that's a deep question. There's a time and place that I'll probably go into it into a lot of detail, but in my guys, I'll give you some. Because he was a community man, everybody felt this attachment to him. Everybody felt like he had a way of making you feel like you was his son or his best friend. Everybody felt that way. At that point, everybody probably put themselves in the position to act like they knew how I felt when it happened. The reality is, you see when death happens, regardless of how close or how distant you are from the person who passes away, there's a grieving process that only you can go through. And nobody can tell you they know how you're feeling, or nobody can tell you that you should do things this way or that way. You do things in accordance to how you feel you should do it, by following your emotions and your heart. There's a void that I was left with, that I am left with, that I will never be able to explain to anybody else because they can't relate to it. So he passed away when I was 22. At that point, my adulthood's just beginning. So there's so many life moments that I can't share with my dad. Getting a new car, getting a new job, getting a pay rise, ideas, marriage, kids. Those are things that my dad ain't gonna be around for. That's something that nobody else is gonna feel. Because to everybody else, even though it felt like he was there all the time, he was part-time for everybody else, but he was full-time with me. So I now have a full-time void that's been left. So in terms of me trying to navigate the world at 22 years old now without a dad figure, was the hardest thing in the world, bro. Something I'm still struggling with, because there's times where I need his perspective of things and I can't get it. And the issue is that void ain't necessarily been filled by somebody else. So it's like now I'm having to navigate just me and God, like, all right, cool, what do I do here? So there's a lot of questions, a lot of deep, like, soul searching to figure out, all right, cool, this is what he would advise. So it's not me saying I'm going to do things in accordance, like, oh, what would Trev do in this position and I should do things that way. It's like, cool, what would he advise? Does that make sense? And should I do things this way, or should I mix and match and stuff like that? So it's just, I spend a lot of times now in silence, man. A lot of time in silence now, trying to just provide the balance that he gave to me. I'm trying to provide it for myself now, which is hard, bro. It's hard, man. It's hard, especially when your dad is so influential and people now look to you to be that for other people. I always understood the assignment of leadership through him. So in terms of influencing people younger than you, I take that very, very seriously. So it's like, I don't have that male figure directly anymore, but I know I need to be that for somebody else. So it forced me to grow up very, very, very quickly, man. Not saying I had to do that before that anyway, growing in a single parent household, but when an influential dad's taken away from you at such a young age, it forces you to grow up in ways in which you wouldn't even imagine, even further after. So I think again, it's just adjusting life at that point. I know I have to deal with this loss for the rest of my life now. How can I then adjust and make sure that I'm coping with it as much as possible? And I use the word coping because again, it's a continuous thing. Like there's never gonna be a day where I'm over it. There's never gonna be a day where I'm no longer grieving. Yeah. It's forever now. And that's just a continuous process that I have to go through in my head.
Thank you. I want to talk corner project, corner league.
Yeah.
Corner league, that's what I want to talk.
Yeah.
Because we spoke about earlier the sudden divide in our community. So I want to talk about what the corner league was, how it started, why it started, and what impact and what effect do you think it had at that time?
So he went to Jamaica 1 year, and whilst he was out there was this project that was happening out there that he brought back to England. So the corner league is a football league, but each team is represented by an area in the area. So in our case, it's Brent. So the reason why it's called the corner league is because that's how the man refer to each other. Yo, where you dep on? You're dep on the corner. Like it's them type of the lingo in it. So he brought it here, and he said, all right, cool. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get each team to be represented by an estate or area in Brent. At the time, it's like, Trevor, you mad? You know what's happening right now. So to say you want to bring St. Raph's, Stonebridge, Church Road, Neasden, Halsden, all these areas in one area, in one place at the same time, 16 plus years old.
Asking for some problem.
Brother, are you okay?
Yeah.
But one thing about Trevor Hutton is he's fearless. Nobody can tell him nothing when he's got an idea in his head. So in 2011, came back, said, I'm going to run it. And that's what he done. Over the course of about 4 years, we had Church Road, we had St. Raph's, we had Neasden, we had Brownwood, we had Stonebridge, we had Wembley. About 11 different areas from the ends participate in the league. And it worked because there's a group of 24, 25-year-olds now who know each other from different ends because of the corner league. I took it over in 2014 to 2016. It was the hardest thing I had to do. The hardest thing because number one, this is direct legacy. Number two, I'm 24. There's man participating in the league that are 30 odd years old, bro. So if anything kicks off, how the hell am I gonna handle that? One time it did. We had Neasden and Ramwood kick off all out brawl on the pitch, and there's me reffing the game and seeing this madness happen, and I'm having to sit everybody down like on some teacher thing and explain to them why it can't go on. But at that point, it gave me an understanding as to how much power is in your hands as a facilitator. Whether you're a coach, a teacher, a project lead, whatever it is, there's a reverence that people have for you that they don't have for nobody else. So even though you man are brawling, the moment I say stop and sit down and listen, it happens because of your position. And that's the position that Trevor carried throughout all his life. When I speak, you better listen.
100%.
So yeah, that league itself, man, it was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. The only reasons why it's not continuing is because the situation in the ends is getting so bad. We can't continue to be reactive. We have to try and find ways in which we're engaging and teaching the kids prior to them being teenagers. When we're trying to engage with 16 plus, their mind's already made up, bro. They're gonna do what they're gonna do. They're gonna be involved in what they're gonna be involved in. We can try and damage control as much as we can, but we've been doing damage control since we've been in this country. What we now need to do is start being proactive. And that's the only negative about the corner league is it wasn't proactive. We're reacting to kids who have already got their mind made up about what they're going to do in the end. We're just hoping that the football's going to either delay it or dampen the effects a little bit. But yeah, that project itself was phenomenal. It will never, ever be duplicated in that way ever again. Number one, because Trevor's no longer here, and number two, because the ends has gone so bad. But yeah, man, phenomenal project.
So do you think, and obviously we've had conversations, and whether or not you want to share, how can we change that narrative?
Yeah.
Or how do we be proactive? So we speak about being reacting
Yeah.
to it. How do we be proactive? And do you have anything in mind
Yeah.
that brings this reactiveness to the forefront?
We just got to start younger. There's an innocence that you have when you're in primary school in terms of the way you view the world. And we have to capitalize on that innocence into making sure that it's not infected with any worldly views by the time you get to secondary school. It's very simple. You can have a glass of water. The moment you drop anything into that water, it's no longer pure. And it's the same with the kids. It's like you can have the most innocent-minded, purest kid. The moment they're exposed to something that's contradicting to their innocence, their entire mindset's changed. So we now have to start targeting the primary school kids, man. So by the time they transition into secondary school, they've already got that positive influence that they can refer to on a consistent basis. So that's where I'm looking to restructure the corner league to making sure that we're targeting 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds, man. Because that's where it's at. We have to stop reacting to these teenagers because the teenagers, they're so intelligent these days. They're so intelligent. You'd have to be so idiotic to believe that any form of community project is going to change their mind. By the time these kids are 13 years old, they know what they want. How can we get them before? And without going into too much, that's what we're going to do from here on, is target that age group. Not just using football, but it's reintroducing this idea of a mentor, man. And what being a community mentor actually looks like. We've used that term for so long now that it's so watered down. It doesn't really hold much weight. So we need to start reintroducing what that looks like from a social perspective, but also from a business perspective. And that's what we'll be doing immediately.
So I want to talk about now why you choose to do so much in the community. Like, what drives you to be so passionate about your community?
Yeah.
And also, we then want to look at AFC Wembley and the charity side of things as well.
Yeah.
So why are you passionate? What drives that passion?
That's all I know, man. I probably was exposed to some community stuff and some business stuff through my dad that I should have been exposed to at a young age, in terms of the politics and the business behind it and what it takes to start a project. And I was exposed to that stuff when I was a kid. So in terms of the need for it, I was always aware of why it needs to be done. But when I'm at my dad's house and I'm seeing youths knock on the door in tears on a weekend, when I'm seeing youths in the front room like just vexed because of their home life, but they're in my dad's presence looking for his guidance, I always knew that's something I had to do. Because if you're not doing it, somebody else is going to do it. But you can't trust that somebody else who's doing it is going to do it the right way.
Yeah.
So at that point, it's just me taking accountability. Bro, my dad died. The following day, I was on the phone making business phone calls to people who he dealt with, trying to pattern certain things in place. I was in no mind to do that, but in my eyes, it's right, cool, time to keep the ball rolling.
100%.
So I always knew that there was a responsibility that I had, knowing what my dad had given me, to give that to other people. And at the same time, it's, no, my dad's no longer here. I know what I would have loved as a 22, 24, 25, 26-year-old from an older person to fill that void. And it's the usual cliche saying that's been thrown around for years is be the change that you want to see. So you have to be that person who you wish you had growing up. And from my 20s, I never had anybody fill that void.
Yeah.
So it's how much young people's in my position, in their teens or in their 20s. If I'm given the opportunity to, I have to be that person for them. It's the way I do things is different to my dad. So I'm less of a deliverer. I'm more of a facilitator. I understand through his journey that there's battles with the council, there's battles with governing bodies, there's battles with people who hold the keys. That's where my fight is.
Yeah.
Because I'm young, but I'm flipping clued up because of him, bro. So I use that knowledge and I use my youth in my 30s, in my early 30s. I use my youth to continue to be a thorn in their side in ways in which he left. So I know there's a lot of people in positions of influence and authority who saw him die and thought, yes, breathing space now. And then here I came, and they're like, shh, flip. And it's just me using my knowledge and using my experience and using my youth and my connection to the community to fight those battles now. None of us can change what's going to happen on the ends, bro. What's going to happen is what's going to happen. It's the way the ends is. But what we can do is change the way that the people in influential positions view our area and the keys and doors that they open. My job is to just open doors, bro. And that's done in the boardroom, that's done in the meetings, behind the scenes. And that's where I choose to give my energy.
100%. Young 30s, yeah?
Man's older now. Man's older now. It's mad, bruv, because we was at the game the other day and I saw the respect that the 15s were giving you as an older, and I'm thinking, rah. But to me, Courtney's little bro. So it's like, you're just seeing that as time goes older, it's just you have to understand that there's a conveyor belt in place. Like, the youngers are going to look up to older are going to look up to older. And when you're in position realizing, rah, you're the older at some point, there's a responsibility that comes with that you can't ignore, bro.
100%.
Because you're the influencer for them. So it's like, all right, cool. How can I avail myself to someone like you to make sure that you're given all the tools and the equipment that you need to continue to expand your influence? And that's where the shift change comes in. My dad spread himself completely thin because he was trying to be the influencer, the facilitator, all those things in one go. It's impossible. It's just prioritizing, man. Anyway, so when I hit late 20s, it's like, all right, cool. You have to reinvent yourself. I always said to myself, don't be Nokia. Don't be Nokia. And if anybody doesn't know what that means, Nokia at one point controlled a vast majority of the mobile phone market share. Like, they ran the world when it came to mobile phones. But they slept. They got comfortable. Now they're that person who talks about, yo, I remember way back when, blah, 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 3210, and yeah. Don't become Nokia. You have to evolve, bro. You have to, because it's not limited to Nokia. How much man do we see outside bookie shops in Harlesden, on a church road in Stonebridge now, talking about, yo, back them the day I used to blah, 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 blah. All right, cool, but what are you doing now? Because the ends need you now. But that only comes with evolution. And I never wanted to become a person. I never want to become a person who's like, yo, I remember them day there where I was doing blah, blah, blah for the community. You can't become that person, man. And that only comes with evolving. So evolving for me is always at the forefront of my mind to make sure that the person who I was 5 years ago can't be the person who I am now, solely for the benefit of the community. Because the community don't need me 5 years ago. They need a newer version of me now. So that's always at the forefront of my mind to make sure that I'm becoming the best person of myself to better serve the community in ways in which they deserve to be served. It's all about serving for me, man.
We saw our good young Tariq Mitchell.
Yeah.
England debut, AFC boy. Played all his majority of his football at AFC before going into academy. What was that feeling like for you? And talk to me about AFC Wembley as a club, and what its aim is for young people. Because we know that AFC Wembley as a footballing club is a lot deeper than football. It doesn't just stop at football.
I'll touch on the club first and I'll touch on Tariq. The club was birthed out of taking control, and people don't realise that we have the community on our side. We have the people who are genuinely serving the community. Let's do our own thing and create some ownership here. And the reasons why that's so important, man, is because, and I'll tie it back in, it's so easy for someone to brand themselves as a mentor or a community leader and tell you, put down the gun or put down the knife, which is great advice, but when they put it down and the hands are empty, were you putting in there as an alternative? And the only way you can provide an opportunity for another young person or another community member is when you're in positions of ownership. So AFC Wembley was birthed out of, all right, cool, we're in this position here. It's not really working out for us. Let's take this here and create some ownership. Board, leadership, senior leadership, everything at AFC Wembley is black because it's from the community and it's owned by black people. East African, Caribbean, West African, different people, but we're black. So we're now in a position where we can provide opportunities for young people when we tell them to put down the knife or put down the gun or unclench your fist and open it up or whatever it is. The club has been serving the community for about 14 years now. And then since then, there's been so many organizations and clubs that's been developed and birthed within that time. You then have to reevaluate and ask yourself, what's the metrics for success? AFC Wembley has a track history of keeping people off the streets, all that stereotypical stuff, but we also have a track history of developing professional footballers, bro. That's the main thing for us. So yes, we are a community pillar in terms of serving our community in ways that are beyond football, but the reality is we're a football club. If you look at our track record, man, we've got Jonathan Rowe, who's at Norwich. We've got Dominic Thompson, who's at Brentford. We've got Tariq, who's at Crystal Palace. We've got Maisie Barker, who's professional women's, who used to be at Chelsea, I believe, now at Charlton. We've got a track record, and that's what we're here to do. So when we're talking about the most influential clubs in the ends, you ain't looking past AFC Wembley.
100%.
It's an absolute fact. Number one, because our community outreach is unwavered, it's undeniable. But number two, we're doing what the tin says. We're a football club. We develop professional footballers.
Yeah.
The only thing is, we don't shout and rave about it, which has been a pro and plus for us and something that we got to do more. But again, it's based upon what we're saying. We can't be Nokia. We can't look back on the past 10 to 14 years and just sit back and admire the success. There's so much more that we have to do.
Yeah.
Tariq Mitchell, going on to tying it back in, is the first AFC Wembley player to become a professional footballer and represent the England national team at a senior level. No other club within the county or within the borough has done that. In terms of taking a young kid from 6 years old and following him on his journey and going all the way through. Sitting in Wembley and seeing his name being called and he's starting and he's number 3 and he's being captained by Raheem, who's from Rafs. Bruv, I will never be able to vocalise what that meant. Not for me, but just for the ends in general. Growing up, we had Paul Merson, who didn't really rep the ends like that, but he's from Holsden. We had Stuart Pearce. Those of a particular generation know what Stuart Pearce was about. Wembley High, Brent Borough team, all that stuff. Heavy. We've got Jason Roberts, who's got a big presence in the ends right now. But our conveyor belt in terms of developing young kids and then seeing them all the way through to national team isn't as vast as other parts of London.
Yeah.
So when it happens, when I tell you, we're all celebrating. So to have our kid who's come through our system debut for England in Wembley being captained by another youth that's from St. Rafs, brother, that's inexplainable because we're creating reference points now that are direct to the kids. It's no longer, you can be like Rashford or you can be like Sean Wright Phillips, who have no correlation or relationship to North West London. But now it's, Tariq's from blah, 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 you know. He's from round the corner.
Yeah.
Raheem's from round the corner, you know. It's this idea that something that was once so distant is now so much closer.
100%.
Which makes it so much more achievable. The issue is how do we tie in the closeness of the vision and what you can achieve with the work and the process? Because again, some young people will then see that and believe that they're entitled to it.
Yeah.
It's like, nah, bro.
I'm better than him.
Brother, he worked, you know. He worked. So that was a special moment, not just for AFC Wembley again, because we're going to do what we've been doing and we're going to continue to do it, man. But it's just for the area. I will never be able to make people outside of Northwest to understand the pride that it is to be from Northwest. It's something that I can't explain. It's just something that you inherit. You have to be there and understand it. Like, don't ever turn around and say we're West London or we're North London. No, right? There's NW on the postcode for a reason. And that's birthed from what I was saying originally about the original community togetherness that we had in terms of this is us in this corner between West and North. This is us. And we ain't really involved in other things west or North wise. And just to see kids flourishing now and to see so much news coverage and media coverage on just Northwest London now from a positive standpoint.
Yeah.
Bruv, it touches my heart, man. And again, it's just something that we're going to continue to do. We sit back, we admire it, we smile, we applaud. We're proud of you. Next one.
Let's go. Let's keep working.
Next one. The landscape of football has changed now. So whereas once upon a time within Brent we had Wembley FC, AFC Wembley, LNER, Forest United, the landscape's changed. Everybody and their dog's got a football club now, bro. Everybody.
Elite academies.
Elite academies everywhere. Charging you parents £500 for a name on the back of the shirt. It's insane, bruv. But this is why I say that we can't afford to be Nokia. So whilst we killed it in 2007 and beyond, the game's developing and we have to develop with it. We have to evolve with it. And that's why we're just expanding our reach to make sure that, number one, we're continuously positioning ourselves to be that vocal point for the community. But number two, we're not extorting people, man. Believe it or not, good quality service don't have to come at a premium price.
100%.
And that's the morals that we rest on, man. We will never ever change from that.
Thank you. Well, big up Tariq, big up AFC.
Yeah, man, every time.
Let's talk about your 9 to 5.
Yeah.
You forgot about that.
Yeah.
You work a 9 to 5 humble man.
Yeah, man, 9 to 5, man.
Talk to us. Explain Kick It Out, because not many people. I think I tell a lie. If you watch football, you know about Kick It Out. You would like to think you know about Kick It Out. If you're interested in racism and you have a view on racism, then you'll know about Kick It Out. But go into more about Kick It Out and what exactly it is you do.
Yeah. So Kick It Out is a national anti-discrimination campaign. So we basically campaign against discrimination. It started off as Let's Kick Racism Out of Football and then rebranded as Kick It Out. Prior to me working for Kick It Out, bro, I couldn't stand the company because I couldn't stand them. And I've said this so many times.
If he gets his P45,
brother, send it. Because they didn't do nothing in our industry. They didn't do nothing in grassroots football community. It was solely professional, which is great. But if somebody was to ask me what do Kick It Out do, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
I knew that they were great with T-shirts and banners and all that stuff and players warming up before the game and stuff. But in terms of operationally, I couldn't tell you what they do. Now, the reasons why I decided to get involved in Kick It Out is because as black people specifically, I'm not going to speak for any other community, but black people, we've become specialists at shouting from the outside. When something negative happens, so-and-so should do this, or so-and-so should do that, or you should do this, or you should be doing things this way. Oh, get involved. Get involved. I don't think people understand. You see, the boardroom culture in terms of the corporate world is soundproofed. They listen to what they want to listen to and they block out whatever they want to block out. If you're shouting from the outside, they're going to block it out. But you see, if you're in the room, they're forced to listen to your perspective. And that's what I've come to an understanding is you can talk about all the organizations that you're discontent with. Unless you're involved and changing it from the inside, you're just going to let your throat get dry. With all that shouting that you're doing, it's to no effect. So I said, all right, cool. Positions come up, grassroots manager. Let me make some noise from the inside. In essence, I was given a blank canvas. All right, cool. This is the brand. This is grassroots football. How can we translate the brand to grassroots football? I'm still painting that canvas as to realising what that looks like because, again, people don't realise that in the corporate world, community and grassroots are the most under-resourced. So it's trying to find ways in which you can be creative to reach as much people as possible in a short space of time. So operationally, I'm challenging the FA on their rules and regulations. I'm challenging county FAs on how they run things. It's, again, using my time to influence the influencers. Bruv, I'm one person. I cannot influence grassroots football, bro. It's the bottom of the pyramid, but the bottom of the pyramid is the biggest part of the pyramid. I have no capacity to influence and to support each and every person who runs a grassroots football club. But what I can do is influence the people who govern you. So I'm in the boardroom meetings all the time trying to let the corporate world understand how the community world works, but also what the needs of the community world are. And that's it in a nutshell, bro. I always said I'm going to be a representative of the community in areas that the community aren't represented. That's in the meetings, that's in the boardrooms, because that's where the changes are made, that's where the rules are made, that's where the decisions are made. Up until this point, everything community related based, whether it's kick it out or community based, it's a dictatorship. The council, the national governing bodies, local governing bodies, they operate off of a dictatorship. This is what we think the community needs, and this is what we're going to do. But what they think the community needs is so far removed from what the actual needs are. And the only way we can change that is if we're in the system, bro. I'm so tired of being that person or seeing our people shout from the outside. It has no effect. And that's why I will continue to be in that corporate world to make sure that I'm an accurate depiction of what my people need. That's the only way change is going to happen.
And would you say that at work you've ever been discriminated, whether it's been blatantly or slyly? Have you suffered from any discrimination?
100%. 100%. If I walk into a room with the team that I manage and I'm introducing myself, they'll look at the person who's not black as, oh, you the grassroots manager. No, it's me. It's me. But because I'm black, they don't subconsciously, and they'll never say this, subconsciously and consciously, they'll look at me as the officer or the grounds person or whatever it is. No, I'm the manager. I'm the one who manages this department. That's from a race perspective. But also, ageism is real, bro. Ageism is real. People older than you. I've been fortunate enough to always be the youngest person in the room in any work that I do. Because for me, that was always a measure of success to say you're doing the right things and you're making the right choices. If you're the youngest person in the room, it means your intelligence and your wisdom is far beyond your actual age. So I've always taken pride in always being the youngest person in the room. However, that comes with its setbacks. So people always use your age against you. Sometimes people who are older than you feel they need to be in a position to guide you or mentor you. Nah, bro. I'm fine, you know. I'm actually fine. Like, I could tell you a thing or two. So yeah, ageism is real, and I've realized that specifically since being in the corporate world, and I started kicking it out when I was 26 years old, bro. Being in corporate rooms and meeting rooms with these guys who are 60, 50 years old, telling them how to do things differently. It's a hard thing. It's a hard thing.
I can imagine.
But at the same time, you have to realize is that you're not bringing your age to the table. You're bringing your experience, your wisdom, and your intelligence. And that's why, for me, it's so important that in any sphere of work, whoever you are, especially as a black person, flipping know your worth, man. Know your worth. Like, don't 100%. Ever let somebody else make you feel inadequate because they're in senior leadership or they're a CEO. No. I know what I'm bringing to the table. I know my value, and I know I have the expertise to change a large perspective of how things are run. If you don't have that self-belief, if you don't know your worth, they're going to walk all over you because it's energy that you project. So yeah, ageism, because when people talk about discrimination, we talk about sex and we talk about race and all that stuff. Brother, ageism in the corporate world is real. It's real. But I've more so used that to my advantage. I'm young, which means I will likely run circles around you tenfold because I'm young. Because I'm young. That's why these authorities that I speak to sicken me sometimes, because you can tell me no, and telling somebody no who's 60 years old or 70 years old may be the end of the line. You're going to have to tell me no 100 times because I'm going to run round and come back. I'm going to run round and come back. Why? Because I have the energy to. So it's taking my youth and using that to my advantages. Well, I say youth because I'm in my 30s, but using that. Man, I'm young in comparison to these old cats. But yeah, using that to my advantage.
As we wrap it up, I want to know. I want people to hear. You spoke about your wisdom. I want people to hear your wisdom. So if you can give advice to young people, whether it's entering the corporate world, whether it's being involved in your community, whether it's just being able to get inside places and stop shouting from the outside,
Yeah.
what advice would you give them?
Integrity. You have to always remain and be yourself. The moment you... I grew up in an era where I saw football coaches speak on the sideline. Yo, what going? We are dealing with. All right, soon come. What's happening, mate? How's things? Yeah, not too bad. Same person, different personality. But it drove me insane. And the reasons why the corporate world has been allowed to get away with so much foolishness for so long is because you might be the right person to challenge authority or positions or rules, regulations or whatever it is. But what you've done is you've compromised yourself. So you now fit into what they look like because of your lack of integrity.
Yeah.
Always remain true to who you are. Don't change how you speak. Don't change how you dress. Don't change how you walk. Don't change how you talk. Be you, because you're being paid to bring your expertise to the table, not your image, not how you pronounce it or she or but or may. You're bringing your expertise to the table. That's where the value is.
Yeah.
And the moment you start to conform and be what you think they want you to be, you've lost. The game is finished. When I go to meetings, I'm not dressing in a suit and a shirt. I'm getting in Benja. I'm getting in a white t-shirt. I'm going as me because that's who I am.
Free promo for Benja out there.
But that's who I am. And that's one thing that people couldn't stand about my dad is he's gonna go into a meeting. He's gonna be like, all right, cool, sir. What really go on, yes, sir? And if people do this and if things go this, sir, and people like, this, sir? Oh, so that he's undeniably himself.
Yeah.
It worked in his favour in a lot of ways, and it didn't in a lot of ways. A lot of doors were open, a lot of doors were closed. But in the end, you have the peace of mind knowing that you were yourself. And unfortunately, young people are very, very quick to compromise for a bag, man. Don't do that. Don't do that. Your wisdom, your knowledge, your expertise, it ain't worth a dime a dozen, bro. Like, keep being yourself. Because in being yourself, you'll realise that in the long run, more doors will open than you would ever imagine. But that's only in being yourself. But also upskill yourself, man. Flipping read. And if you ain't going to read, listen to an audiobook. And if you ain't going to listen to an audiobook, watch a podcast. And if you ain't going to watch a podcast, read a tweet thread. Like, just there's so much information that we have access to. Just make sure that you're consuming that information at some point throughout the day. One thing I pride myself on is if I'm speaking on a particular subject, it's very, very rare that I will allow you to know more than me on that subject. Like, I refuse to be made to feel inadequate because of my lack of chasing the information.
Yeah.
The information is there for everybody.
100%.
But you just have to go out and get it. So yeah, integrity and increase your knowledge. People don't realize the difference between wisdom and knowledge. Knowledge is the receiving of the information. The wisdom is how you apply it. You can't be wise if you ain't knowledgeable. So yeah, increase that knowledge, man. In any capacity, you don't have to pick up a book and read. If you're visual, watch things. And if you don't want to watch things, speak to people. It's these conversations, bro. Like 100%. This is how you learn. And that's what I would say is take that wisdom, take that knowledge and that wisdom that you gained from the community and take it into the boardroom, bro. You're so valuable in ways in which you don't even understand because you're not expanding your horizons in terms of who you engage with. I hate networking. I can't stand that term. I hate it because I don't like speaking to people.
Yeah.
I'm not a people person like that, but I understand the importance in knowing people. And people gravitate towards you because of who you are, not because of an image that you feel that they want you to be. Be yourself, brother. If you're rocking up to a meeting in a tracksuit, do that. If you're going on a Zoom and speaking in a way that the man them do that. In the end, you're bringing something to the table that nobody else can.
And finally, for the people, where can we find you? Where can we see the work you do? How can we stay in sync with the work you do?
You can't. I mean, that's sensible. I don't like socials, but what you can do is follow the things I put my hand to. So you follow AFC Wembley on all the socials. You follow AFC Wembley Foundation on our website and our Instagram. If you want to follow Kick It Out, you can follow Kick It Out and do the work that Kick It Out do. But in reality, my heart's in the community, man. So you'll unlikely see me, but you'll likely see the work that I put my hand to. And a majority of that is going to be through AFC Wembley. So check us out on any platform that you're on. Because we did it, man. We did it.
Respect, my brother.
My guy. My brother. My brother.